Well, again, welcome. If you don't know me, my name is Savannah. My husband is Pastor Luke, and he's the one that hangs out with you guys every week, but he's in Mississippi this week, and so I hope it's okay if I hang out with you guys this week. Really good news about me instead of Pastor Luke is I'm short-winded, okay? So Pastor Luke normally goes about like 35 minutes. Last night, I went 22 minutes, okay? So we'll see. We'll see if I can pull it off. Is anyone watching March Madness right now? Is anyone really into that? Okay. I'm going to say something a little controversial, okay? Are you ready? I don't like basketball. I don't like it, okay? March Madness makes me miss football. That's all that it does. It makes me miss football. I used to not like football, but now I really like football. It kind of became a tradition in our house to watch football with Gio every Sunday, and that was really cute. In fact, we took Gio to his first Bengals game this year, and they won, so he must have been a good luck charm. But he loves football. He loves watching it. He loves throwing footballs. He loves saying football, except it kind of sounds like football. But I have some pictures of him at his first game. There he is. Yeah, that's cute. Super cute. Look at the sock. Are you ready? Boom. Bengals gear. He had to wear it. But he loved it. He had a really good time. He and Luke were totally locked in on the game. Meanwhile, I had my best friend with me, and we were eating a soft pretzel looking for Joe Burrow on the sidelines, okay? So two kinds of people. Luke is also really into fantasy football, and does anyone have a fantasy football league that they participated in this past year? Okay, I also used to find that really annoying, but now I've really grown to appreciate the entertainment value. They did a legacy staff league this year, and the loser had to go take the ACT again. And so, do you guys know who lost? Do you want me to tell you? It was Austin Price from Highland Heights. Where are you, Austin? Are you in here? Is he in here? He's not in here? Okay, can you guys keep a secret? I'm gonna tell you his score. Shh, it was a 19. He got a 19 on the ACT. But you know what? Maybe I would too if it had been a decade since I'd taken the ACT. But like I said, we watched all the games. We watched Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. We watched it all. And I don't really mean to be this girl, but I'm there for two things. I'm there for the snacks, and I'm there for the touchdowns. I want to eat something good, and then I want to yell at the TV when they score. Meanwhile, Luke loves to yell at the TV the whole time. He becomes a professional athlete suddenly when he watches football. Does anyone else know someone like that? They're like yelling at the TV like, come on, how did you miss that? They were wide open. You could have made it. You just should have run faster. Does anyone know anyone like that? Like, well, then you get up there and do it. If it's so easy, you get out there and be paid millions of dollars. But anyway, something that we know about football is whether you're a professional athlete, an expert, you watch all the games, or maybe you know nothing about football, is that in order to make a touchdown, you have to know how to pass the ball, right? Right? Pretty straightforward. And oftentimes in life, I think that we can be a bit like me, and we can be only focused on the touchdown. We get so focused on our own life that we only focus on getting our ball in the end zone. We become focused on our big moment. We become focused on our breakthrough, our future career, our exams, our sports, the person that we want to be with forever. We get so locked in on our destination that we've forgotten that before you get to your destination, there's a journey worth enjoying. There are some things worth doing. There are some passes worth making. Your destination might be a focus point for you, but what about the power of your everyday life that is supposed to be in play and making a pass to someone else? And I promise this will all make sense very soon. But I want to title this message today, Power of the Pass, if you're taking notes, because I believe that your life has the power to change someone else's life. You have something on the inside of you that doesn't have to wait for a defining moment or a platform or a touchdown or an end destination. You have the innate ability as a believer to pass something worth sharing, and that is the good news. That is the gospel. You have the ability as a believer to pass encouragement. You have the ability to pass words of strength to people who need it most. You have the ability to pass an act of kindness. You have the ability to pass an invite to church. So the question then becomes, who are you passing to? Because if you're not passing to someone, then you are simply passing them by. And I want to look at the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, verse 25. It says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law, he replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You've answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, but who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came from where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, and he gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expenses that you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus told him, go and do likewise. And I wanted to look at the parable of the Good Samaritan because here we have someone who desperately needed help. It was obvious that he was dying, that he was hurting, that he was broken, that he needed help. And several people, despite being perfectly capable, despite probably having everything that this man needed to get better, passed him by. And so not only does the Good Samaritan show us a good example of the power of our interactions with people, but Jesus commanded us to follow his example. And so I have 3 quick points, and then I'm done. And the first one is, if you want to discover the power of the pass, you have to stop passing by. You have to stop passing by. Passing by says, I'm not gonna get involved. I don't have time. I'm too busy. They have nothing to do with me or my situation. I already have my core group. I don't need more people to take care of. I'm in church to fill me up. And we have a society that is more divided than ever because we have people choosing who they will stop for and who they won't. Instead of saying, I see that you're hurting, here's something that will help. Instead of saying, I don't care what you've done or where you've come from, I have something to pass on to you. We have groups of people saying, I'm not gonna stop for you unless you belong to my group, my beliefs, unless you contribute to my end goal, my dream, my, unless you help me out. If I scratch your back, I'll scratch yours. We, as the church, have to begin to model something that the Good Samaritan modeled, which is you don't pass by because you have the power to pass on something that will make a difference. You have the power to pass on something that can heal and restore. And I think as believers, sometimes we get a little confused because we think that sharing the gospel is Jesus's specialty, that he'll get a hold of their heart eventually, that he'll convict them eventually. Or maybe we think that it's just the pastor's job or the adult leader's job or your small group leader's job. If people wanted to know about Jesus, well, they know I go to church and they can go to their own church and figure out about Jesus. But it's not all down to Jesus. It's down to the Jesus that lives in you and I, not being willing to just pass by, but to stop and make the decision, I will not pass by this person without making an impact. We hold something that can genuinely help people, heal people, and restore people. And we must not pass by, but we must pass it on. So who are you passing to? Jesus, he never passed by anything. If you look at his life in the Bible, he passed a lot of places. He passed a lot of people, but he always passed with intention. Jesus lived his life saying, I will not pass by this place without making a difference. Would we have heard a lot about Jesus if he never performed any miracles, if he never shared the good news, if he never made his plan for salvation known? He passed through these places and he made sure that he would never pass through without sharing the good news. He would say, I won't pass through this town without someone being helped. Jesus lived his life knowing that even though he had an end mission, he lived his life with intention on his way to the end zone. And there are many stories that we could read about Jesus, but I personally think that this concept is summed up best in Luke 19, and it's the story of Zacchaeus. It says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. And so he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this, and they began to mutter, he is gone to be the guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I'll pay them back 4 times the amount. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. So number 2 is, if you want to discover the power of the pass, you must be intentional when passing through. Jesus was not stopping in Jericho. That was not his end destination. He was actually heading towards Jerusalem. He was heading towards the cross, and he was locked in on the mission that was ahead. He was locked in on the mission that he was on earth for. He knew that there was a great cost ahead. I can't imagine how clouded his mind must have been. I can't imagine how heavy his heart would have been knowing that death was on the other side of the border. I can't imagine how distracted he must have been. But Jesus, knowing that, finds he has to pass through Jericho. Turn to the person next to you and say, passing through. So I want you to think of it this way. I have passed through middle school. I've passed through high school. I've passed through college. I might have been planted in the church the whole time, but my life has been a continual motion of passing through from one season to the next. And some of you might have been at a job for 6 months and now you're at a new one. Some of you might have started at one school and then you transferred to a different one. Some of you might even kind of be in changing friendships right now. You were in one friendship for a while, but then you grew apart and now you're in a different group of friends. You're passing through. If you even want to take it a step further, you can look at your life as a picture of eternity, and we could say that we're just passing through this earth because our end destination is heaven. But somewhere in your life right now, you are passing through. So I wonder if in your passing through, if like Jesus, you are aware of the people that you're passing through alongside. I wonder if like Jesus, if you have an awareness on you, or whether you're so focused on your next destination that you see where you are right now as an inconvenience. You see student life as a thing to just get through instead of saying, I'm passing through a place of influence. You see the job that you're at right now as this thing that's just taking you away from where you want to be instead of seeing it as a place of opportunity. But there needs to be a switch on the inside of you that says, in this window of time, I get to have my life pass by their life, and I want to make sure that they know that I was here. Do people know that when you are passing through, do they know that you're passing through with good news, with hope, with kindness, with encouragement? Or do they see you as just another person who won't slow down long enough to make an impact or to even care? Even Jesus had a big mission ahead, but he was intentional in his passing through. He looked up and saw Zacchaeus. You can't look up if you've got your head down and you're just trying to get through it and you're just trying to pass by it and you're just trying to get to the next big thing. You look up when you are intentionally passing through. You're scanning the room. You're scanning the halls. You're looking for the person that seems alone or discouraged or out of place. You spot the one who looks down. You send a text to the person that's on your heart. You see, when you slow down, that's when we get to be sensitive to listen to the Holy Spirit. When we don't slow down, we can't hear him because we're too focused on all the noise. Jesus changed the heart of Zacchaeus while passing through Jericho. And this was actually a trend in Jesus' life, and I'll prove it to you. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead while passing through Bethany. Jesus showed the woman at the well forgiveness while passing through Samaria. Jesus healed the lepers while passing through the border of Samaria and Galilee. While passing through a crowd, he healed the woman with the issue of blood. Are you seeing the trend? Jesus passed through this earth and didn't pass us by. So who are we to approach our passing through any differently? Jesus had the mindset of, why wouldn't I make a difference? Why wouldn't I try? And the choice is yours. You can pass through deliberately, or you can pass by deliberately. You have to look at your life and know, yes, I'm passing through, but I also know that I have something to pass over into the life of someone else. And you might be listening to me talk and thinking, how could I possibly pass on anything to anyone? If I were to be given the opportunity to talk about Jesus or to invite someone to church, I'd mess it up. I'd say the wrong thing. I'd probably push them further away. But I want to encourage you for a minute. Can I tell you that the enemy will try to tell you that you have nothing worth giving because he knows that what you have to pass over is worth everything to someone. Do not listen to the lies of the enemy that you are not the one to say it. I used to be a legacy small group leader, actually. I was a middle school small group leader for years. And especially in middle school, I feel like people go to church because their parents want them to. And they may be dropped off against their will, or maybe they agree to come because they want to hang out with a friend. And I remember being a middle school small group leader, and I got this brand new 7th grade girl in my group. And I remember meeting her, and I just remember knowing there was something really special in her life. I couldn't really explain it. I didn't know why. I just knew that there was something different about her. But she was there for her friend, and she was actually like one of the kids that would sit in the back, and like the usher would constantly have to go up to them and be like, hey, can you get off your phone? Can you stop kicking the seat in front of you? Can you stop talking? Okay, she was one of those. She didn't want to hear anything that was going on in the service. She didn't want to come to small group. She just wanted to be there for her friend, and that was it. But I can remember God impressing on my heart that I was to not lose sight of her. And I had never really had an instruction like that from God before, so I felt like it was kind of weird, and I probably needed to pay attention to it. And so one day I made the choice that I was going to quite literally chase her down. After service, Legacy used to hang out in the parking lot, and they would hang out around these fire pits, and she would quite literally hide behind fire pits to stay away from me, because she knew that I would drag her to group. And so she and her friend, they would hide behind these fire pits, but I was right there on the other side. And I was like, come on, you're coming to group. But I made the choice that I was going to be relentless in making sure that she knew how much I loved her, that she knew how much Jesus loved her. I was gonna be relentless in reaching out. I was gonna be relentless. Whenever she asked me to pick her up from school, I was always gonna say yes. I was always offering for her to do things at church with me, whatever it took. I just wanted her to know Jesus, and I wanted her to know that he had a destiny for her life. And that girl today is completely in love with Jesus. She's one of the best worship leaders that we have. She met her future spouse at church. She found her calling, and she is now a small group leader for high school girls. And I'm not saying that to make myself look good. I'm just saying I have to wonder, if I didn't listen to the Holy Spirit, would she be planted in church the same way today? I didn't know what it would do then. I didn't know why God told me that. All I knew was that something on the inside of me was saying, I have to reach out to you. I have to get to you. I see that you're hurting. I have to get to you. When you know the power of the past, it will create something on the inside of you that says, I must have a conversation with you. I have to get a coffee with you. I have something to pass over to you. Let me sit with you at lunch. I know you're going through a lot right now. Can I tell you about the God that restored my soul? So the question is, Legacy, who are you passing to? Who are you passing to? All of our lives are better because someone somewhere stopped and passed something over. If I were to say, tell me about someone who changed your life, it would be someone who stopped and included you, someone who encouraged you, someone who gave you strength when you weren't even sure how you were going to make it to the next day. So when did we forget? When did we forget to spread the good news in our day-to-day life? And many of us, myself included at times, have forgotten the incredible gift that our life is and can be to someone else. And here's why it's so important for you to remember. And it's my last point. Number 3, what you pass over gets passed on. Jesus knew that this stop with Zacchaeus was going to influence way more than just this one man. Zacchaeus would go on to make things right with those he wronged. And when they asked what changed, he would reply, I met a man named Jesus, and he changed my life. The woman at the well that he forgave, she went and told her entire town about Jesus. The lepers that he healed, they went home and told their families of how Jesus healed them of their illness. And I want to speak to the reality of sharing the gospel for a minute, because I think that maybe I've made it sound really easy. And so I want to be honest with you. For me, there's a girl that I used to be really close with. She fell away from God several years ago. And she's been on a track to nowhere fast, incredibly self-destructive behavior. It's been really hard to watch her life fall apart. And she wants nothing to do with church. She wants nothing to do with God. And I know a lot of that is because she's mad at some things that have happened in her life that were out of her control. She feels like they were God's fault. But I just keep having this tugging feeling that I need to invite her back to church. But I keep talking myself out of it. I keep saying, like, I gotta wait for the right moment. I gotta wait for the right conversation. She knows that I literally work at a church. You know, if she wanted to come back, she'd ask me herself. Or I've also talked myself out of it because I'm like, well, maybe she'll think that I'm weird, or maybe things will get awkward, or maybe she'll block my number and then I've lost all the influence that I have already, or maybe any conversations that we do have, they just won't be the same. And you just overthink it, and you overthink it, and you overthink it. I know a lie that I tell myself a lot is maybe it's just better for my life to be an example than to be bold and ask. Sometimes I think that we avoid inviting people to church because we're afraid of rejection, or we're afraid of plans falling through, and we don't want to have to reschedule and get the courage to ask all over again. But there's a statistic, and the statistic is really popular, the first part of it, but no one really talks about the last part of it because it's embarrassing. The first part of the statistic is that 82% of unchurched people would go if they were asked. 82%. The next part of the statistic is 80% of current churched people were invited by someone that they knew. So we know that inviting people to church works. 82% would go, 80% of people in church were a result of an invite. This is the part of the statistic that nobody talks about. Only 2% of Christians have ever actually invited someone to church. 2%. And so I began thinking to myself, can you imagine how big the church would be, how big heaven would be if we all said, I refuse to be intimidated any longer when someone's eternity is on the line. I refuse to be intimidated. I refuse to be the one to keep the peace. And I'm not saying that means it's always easy. I'm not saying that it doesn't take persistence. I'm not saying it's not gonna take 20 times of you asking them. Every time you invite someone to church, the enemy loves to get busy because he knows that you're about to do something that will change everything. Every time you try and pass on the good news, there's gonna be some past interference. The night that they were supposed to come with you to church, someone gets sick, their mom said no, they have a flat tire, there's been some kind of tragedy, or now there's a work conflict or a sports conflict. But the enemy gets busiest when the past is about to happen. Why? Because he knows that once the gospel is in their hands, that conversation is going to go farther than just them. It's gonna reach their family, it's gonna reach their friends, it's gonna reach their coworkers, it's gonna reach their classmates, their teammates. And from there, it's gonna pass on again and again and again. And so the enemy knows that what you're about to do is significant. He knows that that invite to church, that conversation is going to go way further and have way more impact than just that one moment. Luke this week was literally telling me about how his friend's barber got invited to church, and now he is completely on fire for God, that his entire family is now attending church. And while Luke was getting his hair cut, every guy that went and sat in that barber's chair, he said, hey, you gotta come to church with me on Sunday. You gotta come to church with me on Sunday. You gotta come to church with me on Sunday. That one invite turned into 10 invites in just one day. The impact is exponential. So don't be discouraged, get encouraged. Don't let fear stop you. Don't let the enemy intimidate you. You have something that can change their entire life. All you have to do is recognize the power of what you have to pass on. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to look back on this season of my life of being burdened for people, for being burdened for members of my family, for being burdened with people that I go to the gym with or that I see when I go get my hair done. I don't want to be burdened by seeing those people and knowing that I have something that can change everything for them and not even take the chance because I want to keep the peace, because I want to be the cool one, because I don't want to get in their business. No. Eternity is on the line and I have to take that chance. So here's what I want us to do. I want you to imagine a life that you know right now. I want you to imagine someone that doesn't know God. And I know during this whole message, you've had a face, you've had a name, but I want you to imagine that person finding God. I want you to imagine the healing that could take place, the mindset changes that could take place, the generational curses that could be broken. I want you to picture them. Imagine what their life would look like a year from now. You see, without Jesus, there would be no Zacchaeus. We wouldn't have even known there was a guy in the tree. But just like Jesus, you are the person that can make another person's story possible. Without you, we won't know about your coworker. We won't know about your locker mate. We won't know about your teammate. We won't know about the person at the gym. We won't know. But all as a result of you just saying, I'm not going to keep passing by. I'm going to be bold and pass over the good news. Church, it's on us to be those that live our lives with intention of passing it on. So who are you passing to? I've got 3 names that are in my head, and they've been in my head all week. And I've been putting it off, and I've been making excuses, and I'm a pastor on the stage, so I know it's real. I know it's scary. I know it's intimidating, but we cannot pass by any longer.